Good afternoon, everyone. Grocery bills approaching 60-year highs. The focus is on beef, poultry, and pork. And the processors of those meats, as well as other foods you eat, are hitting record highs. Look at the profit, the shareholders, the dividends, all while gouging you for prices. But don't worry, Biden says if you exclude the beef and the pork and the poultry, inflation's not that bad. But I know he forgot gasoline, electrical prices, and building materials, and we could add more to that list. But don't worry, it's not that bad. So there's going to be a blame game for the meat processors. The breakdown in the transportation system, logistics, it's all their fault. None of the money printing. So governments are terrified of people taking to the streets on bread and food prices. So what's the next mechanism to lock everybody down? Keep you off the streets. DoConomy. The United Nations and Mastercard joining forces to cut off spending when you hit a carbon max. But don't worry, there's a Planet Loyalty card associated with that. And a full carbon credit trading market. So if you run out of carbon credits, you can purchase more. But then you can re-top up your Mastercard so you have more carbon credits so you can buy more stuff. All of this Biden inflation tax talk, what's it really about? And more importantly, what's the actual effect of inflation on the lives of real people? Joe Biden claims that it's indisputable that his jobs plan is working. This data unequivocally shows that it's not. Well, at least for American workers. Rather, inflation is surging, and more than wiping out any wage gains these workers might have experienced. And historically, when inflation spikes, commodities like gold, silver, lumber, and real estate surge. Learn how simple it is to add physical gold and silver to your portfolio ahead of the rise in inflation and predicted price rises. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA. Call 1-800-356-4470 and get a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. And the elephant in the room nobody wants to point at or even discuss. Grocery bills approaching 60-year highs and the unrest which will follow and people on the streets demanding change. EBT card raises 25% will only give you a few extra months of breathing room. But when we look back at the 1970s, the amount of money printing was nowhere close to what it is today. So you could expect, and I am expecting this, to just go well north of 140 by the end of the year, surpassing the 1970s highs, and we'll be back at the highest food prices in the last couple hundred years. Now add into this massively increasing natural gas prices for Europe, and their electrical prices are pegging at all-time highs, 180 euros per megawatt hour. In addition to the actual fuels going into vehicles, everywhere you look, there is an erosion of implements bringing your food to your belly in a supermarket. Everything's getting so incredibly expensive. The only way I look at food prices now is you're buying it really expensive now, it's still a discount compared to what it's going to be in 2 months, 3 months, 1 year. Food at home inflation. This is a good breakdown here. Different categories of foods and where do we see skyrocketing north of beef, pork, poultry. So jumping into the expert pool of the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, otherwise known as FAO, putting out these charts here, bringing us up to the latest numbers. 2021 on the left is the red line. And if you look on the right chart there, it seems vegetable oils, but that's completely opposite of what we're seeing with the meat prices. So somewhere there's a disconnect because I see the meat line right there, light blue, second from the bottom above sugar. That should be well above the veg oils by now. So maybe there's just some delay in reporting, but I'm going to move you over to the same chart on the left here. The red line is 2021, and you see how they've sneakily disguised that into, if you don't put them together, you don't see the true rise. in the upward trajectory. Now, we got the little break in summer, and you can see the downward trend, but upward and up is going to be from now through the winter as more things get locked down, more people can't go to work, more factories close, more supply chains get cut off, and more delivery drivers are unable to fulfill their roles, bringing you food into the cities. Difficulties inbound is an understatement there. So Biden's telling us that if you exclude beef, pork, and poultry, inflation's really not that bad. Half of the overall increases in grocery prices are significant to those three products, which does not reflect the FAO food price index, interestingly. But I would say, hold on. Have you seen the lumber prices? Although they've come down, it's still above what it's been in years, decades even. Fuel costs are rising. Have you been to the pump lately to fill up your car? What about your electrical prices? I know mine have gone up. And almost everything you buy across the landscape has gone up in price. So let's stay with meat processors. The profitability, wow, it looks like it's a good time to be in meat processing. The highest since the 1970s for gross margin percentage. And you think the government might step in and say, all right, meat processors, we understand it's supposed to be a quote-unquote free market, but you can't keep gouging people unrealistically, front-running inflation 100% when meat prices are only going up from the wholesalers or from the farmgate at 15%, and you're passing on 100% increases to the customer. At what point does somebody step in and go, whoa? You got to pull back that price increases because this leading processor's aggregate net income just skyrocketed in 2021. Skyrocketed. And if you've seen either the report I did with Tyson, earnings per share increases, and what Charlie Rankin had also uncovered, declaration of how they're raising food prices, it's just going to continue. Nobody's batting an eye. There'll be no investigation. Price gouging is only a single product during an emergency at a certain time. Not just companies running away, charging you whatever they can because they're the only players left in town. So look at the U.S. beef, pork, and broiler supply chains, broilers, chicken. That's an enormous amount of breakdown possibilities, and we're seeing it everywhere. Delivery drivers are unable to continue at the capacity they used to. Factories are operating at 1/3 due to distancing. They used to be shoulder to shoulder. Now they're 6 feet apart. They're running at 1/3 on the staff. Staff are not showing up. There's staff shortages. So what's next? This is next globally. Everywhere you look, it's all pointing to this. Prices are going to run away here by the end of the year into the early part of 2022, and this should be the scene on almost every city street across the planet within the next 6 months. So, of course, there's going to have to be a blame game, and now it is meat packers, obviously, because they're making the most money. They're front-running inflation, but did anybody scream at the lumber companies? Not really. They just complained. And everywhere you look, is anybody screaming at the oil refiners because now gas is over $3 a gallon? Nope. When it reaches $5, people might get angry. But the blame game is going to keep going around. It's never going to be pointed back to central banking, the money printing, these ridiculous bills putting almost $4 trillion of inflated money back into the economy. No, don't talk about that. It's the meat. It's the meat people. So if you're looking at inflation hotspots and you would expect unrest to start in these areas first, the darkest orange. So look for these. And I am starting to see there's Iran, there's Venezuela. South Africa's there, but it's only running at 5 to 30%. I would expect Chile to be next and other nations across Central and Southern Africa. Keep that in your news marker. So there has to be a massive way to control the populace and deflect and also put some sort of legality to limiting what you can buy. If you just say you can't buy it, well, people are going to get super angry and say, don't tell me what to do. But if you have a card like this linked to some sort of global mandate, global governance, mixing climate and finance, another distraction here, Mastercard hooking up with the United Nations to issue this new type of credit card. And it monitors and cuts off your spending when you reach a carbon maximum. Currently, it's voluntary. Soon to be in 2022 implemented, and then they're going to do a slow drip into 2023. By 2023, this will be standard for everybody on the planet. You got about a year and a half before you're going to start hearing and be forced to accept these personal carbon allotments. undetermined what your personal allotment will be. But once you reach that certain threshold, let's say it's 10, when you reach that, anything you're going to buy is going to be cut off because you've overextended your carbon footprint. But there is hope. You shall be able to buy carbon credits on the open carbon credit market, and then you can retop up your card and continue to spend. It's a CO2 monitoring Mastercard called Duchonomy. And the brainchild here from United Nations. One certainly can't expect people to change their behavior and take climate change action if they don't know what their climate footprint is or what their consumption represents. See, now they're going to quantify everything for you, and since it's quantified, it'll be rationed. And they're teaming up with Klarna, and I've put everything in the description box below so you can continue to find all the stories about the economy and how this dovetails right in with the UN here and going into the finance globally. They're upgrading an app to give you, the customer, a transparent rundown on shopping and your carbon footprint involved in that. In grazing the surface information here, they're going to take into consideration if your steak comes from 1,000 miles away, that delivery of whatever vehicle it is going to be encoded and recorded into this. Everything's going to be tracked, traced, monitored in real time down to the nth degree. I think that's why they need a full AI system across the planet. While many of us are aware that we need to reduce our carbon footprint, advice on doing so can seem nebulous, and keeping a tab is difficult. Do monitors and cuts off spending when we hit our carbon max. Will you have a choice to accept or not accept? Sure, but you'll be cut off from all digital finance, period, if you do not go with this. But don't worry, there's a Planet loyalty card with it. Yay, you can just put it on your luggage while you take a flight. And will you even be able to purchase that flight? Because the amount of CO2, perhaps you bought a bunch of steaks, you bought a bunch of lumber for a remodel on your home. Oops, you've exceeded that. Oh, but don't worry. Yeah, you can buy carbon credits on the open market, and then you can just keep topping up your card. Where are these carbon credits coming from? Oh, somebody like me that would digitize my forest and load it up as a carbon allocation for you, and then you would pay me. Oh, wait, but I don't own that much land. Who owns hundreds of thousands of acres or millions of acres of forest across the planet that could digitize that and put it as an asset that you would have to perpetually pay them each year for the sequestration through the leaves of a natural process, making money out of nothing, literally. They say money doesn't grow on trees, but now it does. If you digitize your forest, put it into the carbon allocation providers, and then set that over to the carbon market, and you just get that looping feedback return of positive, positive, positive for the rest of your life. Who set up that and who's the biggest players? Because you're going to be buying from them so you can continue to eat. But food is going to be the most important thing, especially with all this limitation already out into the distant landscape of where we're moving to. 3-month emergency food supply by Patriot Supply and Adapt 2030. 25-year shelf life, and you know buying it now with inflation running wild, it's going to be far cheaper now than it will be in a few months or next year. And My Patriot Supply also has 6-month and 1-year emergency food supplies. Jump on down there. The link's in the description box below. It's a great way to support the channel. And as I said, everything for tonight's storyline in the video is in the description box below with all the links you can follow out with the ways that they're going to link it to your personal credit cards and stop you from purchasing. This is a global rationing system in play here. I thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video, and I'll see you next time.